Welcome to the Healthy AF podcast. In this episode, we take a look at the latest example of nutritional heresy brought to you by academic research, namely the food compass. I'm your host, Zane Griggs, sharing with you what I have learned in 25 years as a fitness professional about nutrition, exercise, sleep, and many more lifestyle strategies to help you become healthy AF, healthy after 50. Now, the food compass is just a set of criteria rating foods based on their nutrient composition and supposedly benefit to our health. It was created by the dean of the Friedman School of Nutrition at Tufts University, a man named Dariush Mozaffarian. And this food compass got some attention in September of 2022 when Dean Mozaffarian co-chaired the White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. Now, this was considered the first conference of its kind since 1969, 1970. And that conference, back in 70, when they had a White House Conference on Nutrition, it led to the creation of the food pyramid. And we all know how well that turned out. So I wouldn't expect much different from this one, to be honest. But there was a study published that evaluated the food compass and its effectiveness at rating foods, which really, I think what really shined the light on how this, food compass really views certain foods. Well, let's just get into it. They did this study using a list of common foods that included a graph illustrate how these foods would be ranked by the food compass based on its criteria. And I'll share the graph here. It's really something to behold in the way it looks at foods that, well, probably a little differently than you and I do. It breaks down the foods. Well, this graph is, of course, created by this study looking at the food compass again. So it breaks down the foods in sections like to be encouraged, which is in green, to be moderated, which are in yellow, and to be minimized, which is in red. Now let's look at some examples of each of these. Starting with the foods to be encouraged, according to the food compass. We see frosted mini wheats, non-fat frozen yogurt, and Honey Nut Cheerios. I don't know about you, I would never recommend a cereal, breakfast cereal, to anyone to eat on a regular basis, or at all. Really, I consider that dessert. It means processed grains, processed sugar, and it's got seed oils in it. So treat that as a food you're supposed to be avoiding. But here, the food compass calls it a food to be recommended, probably because of the fortification of vitamins and minerals that they put in these cereals. Non-fat frozen yogurt is just processed dairy with some heavily processed dairy with some sugar added to it, right? So, I obviously foods I wouldn't encourage people to eat, but again, according to the food compass and the wisdom coming from Tufts University, they made the list to be moderated. Sweet potato fries or chips, okay? Sweet potatoes, sure. Chips, all fried in seed oils, right? So obviously foods to be avoided. Egg substitute fried in vegetable oil. Yikes, more seed oils. Lucky Charms, of all things. Canned pineapple in heavy syrup. Almond M&Ms, and an ice cream cone with nuts. Those are the foods to be moderated. Wonder what we're supposed to be avoiding. Well, before we go there, let's look at what else was to be moderated that didn't quite make the recommended list. Skinless chicken breast, poached or boiled egg, and whole milk. Now, in light of what's on the recommended list, I think these foods need to be moved up. I'm not a big fan of skinless chicken breast by any means. If I'm going to eat chicken, it better have some skin on it. I prefer dark meat and definitely with a bone in the middle. But that's my personal preference. Skinless chicken breast still ranks higher than frosted mini wheats and Honey Nut Cheerios, in my professional opinion. Poached or boiled whole egg. Yes, please give it to everybody. What a great breakfast, right? And whole milk. If you're going to drink milk, it better be whole milk. If you can go for raw whole milk, even better. But whole milk definitely should be moved up on the recommended list, but it may be to be moderated list along with the almond M&Ms and Lucky Charms. So we can kind of tell where this guy's going, but let me finish. To be minimized: ground beef, whole egg, fried in butter, cheddar cheese. Wow. Those three I would put on the to be recommended list to eat every single day. Once again, they've got nutrition recommendations turned absolutely backwards and upside down. I would just flip this over. And if you just flipped it over, just flipped it from minimized to most recommended, the most recommended to minimized, and we could sort out the moderated, you'd have a much better list. So, take a look at this. I'm going to keep this in it'll be in the show notes if you want to come back to it, but it's, so you can see why I called it nutritional heresy. So why is this relevant? Why am I talking about this? Why is this worth sharing? Well, as I said, Dean Mozaffarian co-chaired the White House Nutrition Conference. And this food compass that he developed was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. So it's a big foundation. And another foundation funded by, well, you know the guy. He sells windows, and he's a bit of a computer geek. They got into plant-based meat, and now he's the single largest owner of farmland in the U.S. I think you know who I mean. And I believe this food compass also recently received some federal funding to help promote it and further its promotion. Obviously, the majority of academic nutrition research in the USDA and the Academy of Nutrition, who trains all of our dietitians, are funded by the largest processed food companies in the world, right? So Dean Mozaffarian certainly has a high level of influence in the making of public policy. And so this food compass may become just that, meaning it would determine the foods provided in our schools and our military, as well as the general recommendations from the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Council and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So, which, again, those recommendations would be taught to our dietitians and medical staff. So more evidence that we can't rely on government or academic nutrition recommendations, because they are driven by the need to benefit the companies that fund them, not the public welfare. They're not interested in what you and I really need. So we have to do our own research and use some common sense, knowing that whole foods like meat and eggs are better than any processed foods like cereals, desserts, and processed replacements of real food like egg substitutes and vegetable oils. My recommendations, of course, are to put animal foods like meat and eggs and raw dairy at the center of your diet, followed by other whole foods that work with your personal health goals and that you digest well. Avoiding processed foods as often as possible, particularly the processed grains, processed sugar, and the seed oils. Now, if learning more on this topic is of interest to you, then I'm sure you'd like the Healthy AF Club, where I deliver coaching on nutrition and other lifestyle strategies for longevity and fitness. And you'll find a supportive community of like-minded people who are taking charge of their health through lifestyle choices. Check it out. You'll find the link in the show notes.